Okay, so let's get right into it. Now, you and I both know the famous names on all those world's richest lists, right? But our source material today suggests there's a whole different level of wealth that operates behind the scenes. So what we're going to do is break down the playbook that it claims these super influential families use to not only build their fortunes, but to get ready for what's coming next in the new economy. This quote, man, this really gets to the heart of the whole thing. See, it's not about getting famous or having your picture in a magazine. It's about quiet, absolute control. Our source calls these groups shadow families, dynasties that, allegedly work outside the public eye to influence the very systems we all live in. And to give you a sense of the sheer scale we're talking about, get ready for this. The source estimates the net worth of just one of these families, the Rothschilds, at a staggering $10 trillion. It's a number that's almost impossible to wrap your head around, and it shows a level of wealth that can literally shape nations.
And as you can see, we're not talking about new tech billionaires here. The source points to these historic dynasties, like the Rothschilds and the House of Saud. The claim is that they have controlled core global industries for centuries, basically operating on the principle that if they control a nation's credit, they really don't care who makes its laws.
So here's the crucial point. Why does any of this matter to us right now? Well, because the source claims that the exact same playbook they used to build the old economy is now being updated for the future. They're pouring money into the tech that will define the next 100 years. And if you don't understand their strategy, you're already playing catch-up.
All right, let's move into our first section and see how this all connects. Because this is where the playbook starts to intersect with our everyday lives. A huge disruption to the job market, all driven by the very technology that these families are investing in.
Whoa! This slide really drives home the urgency, doesn't it? A study from Oxford University, which our source cites, projects that almost half of all current jobs could just vanish in the next 10 years. That's like an earthquake for the economy. And according to the source, the wealthy aren't just sitting back and watching this happen. They're actively funding the very tech that's causing the shakeup.
And look, this isn't just about blue-collar jobs anymore. Of course, driving roles are on the chopping block because of self-driving tech. But check out this list. The source argues that AI is coming for the white-collar world too. Accountants, tax preparers, even stock traders. They're being replaced by algorithms that are just faster, cheaper, and more accurate.
So if the old ways of working are on shaky ground, how do you even begin to adapt? Well, our source material says it all starts with a major shift in how you think. This next section is all about the specific mindset and the habits it says the wealthy cultivate.
The source argues that intelligence isn't something you're just born with, it's something you build day by day. First, by relentlessly asking questions, digging deeper than just the surface answer. Second, by reading all the time, across different subjects, so you can connect ideas nobody else sees. And third, by being really intentional about who you spend time with, because you just naturally absorb the mindset of the people around you.
This slide is such a powerful contrast. The source calls one side the poor man's trap, spending money you don't even have to look rich. But the wealthy mindset, it's the total opposite. It's about using your capital to buy new skills and assets and facing your problems head-on instead of trying to distract yourself from them.
And this, right here, is the core principle. Everything else flows from this one idea. It's about shifting your focus away from what other people see and instead concentrating on building real, solid, sustainable substance. It's about the foundation, not the fancy paint job.
Okay, so with that mindset locked in, let's get into the actionable stuff. Section 3 breaks down the source's playbook for how you should think about your income and even where you live in this new economy.
So the very first step is to generate the fuel for your empire. The source points to these high-value remote jobs that are still in high demand. We're talking software engineers who are building this new world, financial managers who oversee the money, and even super specialized medical roles like radiology that can now be done from anywhere. This is your income stream. This is the engine.
Now, once you have that income, the next play is all about your environment. And this is a critical concept from the source. The ultra-wealthy see geography not as something that restricts them, but as a strategic tool. They see the entire globe as a chessboard, and they move to the squares that give them the best advantage for their wealth and their lifestyle. And here are the source's top picks. If your goal is pure wealth preservation, you've got places like the Bahamas with zero income tax. If you want a super high quality of life and stability, there's Dubai and Singapore. And if you want to network with the absolute global elite, you go to Monaco, where the source claims rubbing shoulders with influential people is just, part of the daily routine.
And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important part of the entire playbook. How do you make it last? This section is all about the ultimate rule for creating generational wealth that could, in theory, last forever.
It's called the 5% rule, and the concept is just elegantly simple. You invest your capital, it generates a return each year, let's call it 5%, and you live off of that return. By never, ever touching the original pot of money, you make sure that capital base stays there, generating income pretty much forever.
I just love the way the source explains it. It asks you to think of your capital as a money tree. Step 1, you plant the tree. Step 2, you let it grow fruit. That's your investment return. Step 3, you live off that fruit. But the absolute #1 rule is you never, ever cut down the tree itself for firewood. That's it. That's how legacy wealth is built.
And finally, the source kind of broadens the definition of legacy beyond just money. It's also about the impact you have. It points to people like Keanu Reeves, who apparently funded cancer research quietly, without putting his name on it. It suggests that a true modern legacy combines that financial freedom with a meaningful and often anonymous contribution to the world.
So there you have it, a full breakdown of a modern wealth playbook, straight from our source material. It presents a pretty clear path, right? From your mindset and your skills to your location and your legacy. But it does leave us with a pretty big question to think about. What is the single biggest obstacle, either in society or just inside ourselves, to actually following a path like this?